Good morning, good evening, good to who needs it. Me again, Edgar Allan Poe again, Eddie to his friends. Edgar, my love, was probably killed by some combination of exposure to bats or pigeon fecal matter. This man had a lot of factors limiting his immune system, including prolonged and repeated exposure to tuberculosis, cholera, recurrent depressive episodes, and he was a chronic raging alcoholic. He had previously almost overdosed on laudanum, was known to have the opium habit, and people tried to use his death in temperance movement propaganda. There were a number of conspiracies, and still are, that he had been murdered, while newspapers often referred to his death as cerebral inflammation, a cultural shorthand at the time for death by alcoholism. Because he was found on election day, it's thought that he might have been a victim of cooping, a practice of drugging people and shoving them into the polls to influence voting. His death is often considered unsolved. All documentation and his death certificate are lost, and the cause is debated. What is known is that Poe was found delirious in Baltimore's Ryan's Tavern, screaming for help. Snodgrass, an acquaintance, was identified and called for. Most of the account comes from Snodgrass and Moran, who say that Poe was in a beastly state. No reliable evidence exists for where Poe had been for the previous week. He had relocated to Baltimore to take an editing job and was scoping out locations for him and his new fiancée to live in. But when he was found, he was not coherent for long enough stretches of time to explain anything from the week that he had been missing. He repeatedly called out the name Reynolds, though Reynolds has never been identified. When a briefly coherent Poe was told that he would soon be reunited with friends who were coming to collect him, Poe responded, "The best thing my friend could do would be to blow my brains out with a pistol." He called out for his wife in Virginia, which may have referred to his fiancée or been a delusion about his deceased wife. He died having never long recovered consciousness, with his last words, "Lord, help my poor soul." One of the many theories is that the real culprit was shit. Pigeon and bat guano in his living quarters could have carried viruses or imply his exposure to rabies from the bats. In 1997, it was suggested that Poe had exhibited hydrophobia in the last year of his life based on anecdotal evidence. It may be that he wasn't as raging an alcoholic as everyone had thought after all, but just dying of rabies and in cognitive decline. There's a reason they call it being batshit crazy.